22nd century discovery.
Hello and good evening for this Thursday, April 25th, 2024. We have just finished watching the 5th episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 5 titled Mirrors. And we are just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast for our live stream review of this episode. I'm Dave Mader, joined with Chris Worldmind Murphy to break this episode all down and talk all about it. How are you guys? How are you doing tonight, Chris?
Oh, I'm doing just wonderful, Captain Mater. I'm happy to be on this little, he's a little way mission to a mirror universe to discover new things and MacGuffins that were pondering us last episode, and I was happy to see them revealed in this episode. And I feel this is where Discovery starts to really reach its stride, and that's the strength of this show, I find.
Okay, yeah. Of course, and we're expecting Adam Woodward to join us. We think he started the episode less than an hour ago, so he's probably just finishing it up, and we expect him to be with us. Of course, we have this is a live stream. We have Ensign Norman here in the comments with us. Only with us for the first half hour. Well, we'll see what we need there. Are we there yet? Where are we? Where we there? Where yet?
Are we there at the end of the story in Discovery? Not yet.
No, halfway.
Halfway, yeah.
This is the halfway turning point. So now we've seen half of this final season. We have 5 episodes to go. And but let's talk about Mirrors. Spoilers, if you haven't watched this episode yet, we're going to break it all down and tell you things that happened in this episode. So if you don't want to know, get the heck on out of here. Go watch it. Come back. We'll be here when you get back. Maybe not live, but we'll be here. So, okay. What headlines at this hour? I think for me, the big thing in this episode was the Breen. The fact that we got to see them, or that Locke was confirmed to be a Breen. That was one thing we had been kind of speculating about in the previous podcasts. There was some rumors flying around on the internet about that. So not a totally original idea on my part, but I was like, well, since they're mentioning the Breen all over and over again and Locke's species was not identified, it was plausible that he would end up to be a Breen. He does. And we got to see what their physiology is like, because of course on Deep Space Nine, the only real time we ever got much Breen stuff, we're covering that right now in our Deep Space Nine podcast. They were always under those refrigeration suits. They have that kind of weird language. And I don't know, I always kind of imagine them to be like wolves, or sort of like have like a, like almost a dog like kind of head, but nope. They're kind of more like Murph, from Star Trek Prodigy, where they're kind of like these green selenoid things. I don't know what else to talk about them, but some aspects there. So I think that was the more interesting canon parts that were sort of established for me in this episode. What is the other thing? They find the mirror universe version of the Enterprise, the ISS Enterprise, the like Kirk's Enterprise or Pike's Enterprise, that as seen in Mirror Mirror in the Star Trek the original series, it's still kicking in the 32nd century or 31st century, or the 32nd, right? 32nd century, inside of this little wormhole, and so they get to tow that out by the end of the episode. And I guess we got all of Locke and Maul's backstory, or a lot of it was kind of established in this episode too. Commander Rayner, some stuff with him we'll talk about, in terms of like he's much like Archer, doesn't want to sit in his chair or in the chair now that he's not the captain of this ship. So but he's obviously running the show over there, running the bridge for this episode, while Burnham and Book are on this away mission. And am I missing anything else, Murphy?
You've hit the main bits. They happen to get another puzzle piece that basically Maul and Locke had beat them to. We don't quite get to see how or why they found that piece, but they got the piece, and Burnham wrestled it away from them. So now there's a mysterious liquid that we get to science up in the next episode that should lead us on a clue to yet another piece of this key.
Right.
But yeah, no, I was digging the whole like Maul and Locke backstory and the whole reason behind them wanting to be free, it makes a lot of sense. I enjoyed the intrigue of Locke being Breen royalty and basically having to, you know, kill his blood ties to that royalty just so he can go be with his Juliet, if you will.
Yeah. Like I will say I'm finding Locke to be a much more compelling character than Maul so far, at least. I'm finding Maul sort of tiresome. She's just, I don't know, like there's some conversations between her and Book in this episode about their connection to his mentor, Cleveland Booker the fourth, because he's the fifth. And that was her biological father. Is that what was happening? Like,
yeah, his mentor was her biological father, and he was a really, really shit dad to her, but he was a really great mentor to him. So that's a really odd way to try and bond with somebody that you want to gain the trust of, is to basically be like, hey, we're siblings, but I was treated better than you were. So
right. Hard. Well, yeah, that could cause some conflict right there. Coming in, Adam Woodward.
Hey guys,
fresh off the credits.
you have no idea. Ran right down.
Right. Well, we're glad that you were able to expedite that. Sorry for the rush. We'll get to you in a second. We got a couple comments here. Norman saying, my main issue with this episode is series wide. Mira Saru, who's mentioned in this episode, to do what he did seemed to make Georgiou's revisit to change the past actually may have happened. Interesting. Okay. We'll see. Maybe. So do we have plot holes related to the mirror universe? Maybe. You remember in the first season, Michael ate? No, she didn't eat Mira Saru. She actually just ate another Kelpian. It was not Saru.
Another Kelpian. It wasn't Saru. She was like helping Saru through that bit. I remember that. I remember Mira Saru being after the whole eating Kelpian.
Yeah, he wasn't the one eaten. And then is Maul truly in love with Locke or leading him on deliberately? I think she's into him. I'm not questioning that part of it so far. So Adam, so what's your take on this episode, Mirrors? You just finished it seconds ago. How are you feeling about it?
So I quite enjoyed it. I think not having a lot of time to digest it just yet, but I was engaged the whole episode. Some plot holes and things, but that's sort of the Discovery way. I can live with all that. I thought it was I was excited. I want to hear what you guys have to say, and I'll participate as much as I can here. But I liked it. I did like it. And I did like the storyline. It took me a place I didn't know we were going to go tonight. I figured it was Mirror. Dave, you threw us off during the week, I gotta say, with your comment.
But that it wasn't going to be about the mirrors, or there was no indication. And all the preview photos, they didn't show us anything of the ISS Enterprise, so they kept that under wraps until we saw the episode today.
But that was it's always exciting to see another Enterprise. I like that as well.
Well, it makes sense because, of course, they filmed this show in Toronto, where they also make Strange New Worlds, and they just had to redress those sets for this episode, and make them Terran. So it kind of like allowed them to have another bottle episode in addition to the one they had last week. But I liked last week's episode a lot more than this one. I felt like there was a lot of emphasis in this episode on the relationships. Like, I guess, like, depending on how you feel about these villains, that might color your opinion of this episode. And I was saying to Murphy just before you joined, Adam, that I think the Maul character is sort of wearing thin for me already. I'm not really super into her or finding her compelling, other than just get her, like, stop her, and Locke's a little bit more interesting to me, but not a ton.
We're Breen scene at the beginning and learning more about him, I thought was quite interesting too.
Learning about him was interesting. Did we learn anything much more about her, or
other than she's basically I wouldn't say smuggler, but content courier, just bringing in like dilithium and stuff like that. She just seems like the bad influence girlfriend on the rich kid. Like that's kind of what her shtick seems to be about. She's very like usurp whatever. What's that species? The one that are they're all blue and they've got like the seam down their face.
Oh, I can't remember the top of my head.
Yeah,
They're the
she
Etherites
made
or
a
something like that.
something like that. She basically made a line saying she's like I've had harder hits from insert
Bolians.
species.
You mean the
Bolians, yeah.
Bolians? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. She's like, I've been hit harder by Bolians and that and stuff like that. So she just seems like this like rebellious, bad influence girl in the sense like she's clearly I don't know, it's just like she wants to do the things that you know she shouldn't be doing because she's basically has daddy issues at the end of the day.
Well, yeah,
So
she
it's
has
like that's
daddy.
the thing you found out she's got daddy issues and a courier job.
Yeah,
But
she,
but that story is also very. It's always like dad died or left, and in this case, mom worked her butt off and died early because of dad leaving. So she definitely has some anger issues for sure. And then she went the way of whatever could work for her.
right.
But
And now they're in
it's
this
the same.
situation.
Yeah.
Now they're in this situation where they're willing to they want to get this progenitor technology, which is incredibly powerful and advanced, just so they can pay off whatever bounty is on Locke's head, and potentially not just like screw over the entire galaxy. It seems like incredibly selfish. I don't care. I am not sympathetic to them whatsoever. And because it's all about what she wants, and because she had a hard life, then she gets to be an accessory to potentially mass murder. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, other than she's just a despicable villain. But they want us to care about them clearly, and to give and this whole idea of like second chances, and the Federation gives you second chances. It's a little hard to reconcile, but negotiate with them or not. I don't know. And I've never seen like two people give an entire starship such a hard time. Like they just warp away, and then Raider's like, "Whoops, too late." By the end of the episode,
Then that
like,
was that ending. I mean, sorry, not the ending, but that escape was just too simple.
like
Yeah, that was way too simple.
Like, just follow them. You have Discovery. You could even jump ahead of them in their path, like a ship that can go anywhere, anytime. It just.
Well, okay. The only reason they wouldn't have done that is because they supposedly used a bunch of energy trying to contact them through the wormhole and then pulling out the ship. So both ships are strained and they don't quite have the juice to chase a pod that has whipped off into warp drive, even though they could probably catch up to it in like a few hours.
Even with one of their shuttles, but
I you know what I've discovered that I believe Maul's motivation is that she's willing to do mean things for Breen Peen.
were you thinking about that one for a while?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Well, good. What else? The other thing in this episode too was logic of last episode. Now, I think that there's plausibly an answer here, so maybe I'm just nitpicking. But in the last episode, we were led to believe that Locke and Maul put this time bug on to Adira. They bring it on to the ship, and then the time bug in the timeline where we saw Rayner and Michael Burnham go into the future, like 30 years into the future. We're told that Discovery was in that time loop for a while. It took a while for Starfleet to find you and get you out of it, and by that time, Locke and Maul were too far ahead. But in this episode, but that was changed so that they were only in the time bug thing for 6 hours. Now, in this one, we see Locke and Maul are into this little wormhole thing first. Their ship's been destroyed. They ended up onto the ISS Enterprise, but the only reason they were able to get this Enterprise out of this wormhole by the end of the episode was with Discovery's help. So presumably, Locke and Maul figured out how to get the item and get out of that wormhole completely by themselves, without in what that timeline would have been, right?
So Wait, no, are you saying that they figured out how to get out of that by themselves? No, they were on the Enterprise. They just took it like an escape pod,
No, but how did they
basically.
get out of the
You're talking
worm?
about in the other
Of the wormhole?
Yeah.
In when the ship escaped, when it was dragged out and the wormhole collapsed or whatever, that's when they launched the escape pod from
Correct.
the Enterprise that they were on.
Right. But in the timeline we would have just had from the previous episode, Discovery wasn't there, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yes, no, I see what you're saying.
So they would have had to have gotten out of that and getting the item without Discovery's help whatsoever.
That's entirely possible that they, their ship in that timeline made it through the wormhole, or they managed to get an escape pod from the Enterprise from that wormhole, and so on and so
The
forth.
only explanation I can think of is that they took an escape pod from the ISS Enterprise and then used that to get out of the wormhole.
Yeah, I mean, if they're on the ship long enough, like uninterrupted, they're gonna figure out how to get off it. Even if they don't know the systems, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this button does this. Cool, let's open this door and get out of here." Finally, after we spend like 3 days, but Enterprise
Norman
is a
thinks
time
that
loop.
same thing. They probably, I guess, in that timeline, they would have, you probably use an escape pod, or their ship wasn't destroyed, like you're saying, Murphy. But I don't know why it wouldn't be, because that happened before Michael and them caught up. So,
you know what?
I think
Sorry, I want to take something back. I just said last week's episode was really good. Like they closed all the holes. Like everything was sort of explained very well.
Mhm.
And I think again this week they went back to just assuming we just accept some things along the way, and I think that's what you're trying to say, Dave.
Yeah, and I felt like that was my sort of one logic thing. I was like, that doesn't make sense compared to what they just told us. And then the other thing, I think the episode is a lot about the interrelationships for me. It's a lot. There's a lot about what's going on in the Burnham book storyline. There was a little bit about with Adira being sort of upset about bringing the time bug on in the first place, although they don't spend a ton of time on that. And then, of course, Locke and Maul themselves, right? There's a ton.
Don't forget Dr. Culber and
Dr. Culber and Tilly and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right. There's all these things. So I'm like, can we just get back to the adventure sometimes and not worry so much about whose feelings are hurt at the moment and the soap opera of it all.
Yeah, I have to
I
say,
felt like they were firmly on the adventure, but not to cut you off, Adam. Sorry.
yeah, I really don't like the Burnham book shuttle, like when they're together on little adventures.
I feel like if Ashley was here, she would tell us, no, I like this stuff. I like this. I don't even dislike the relationship or whatever, or them as a couple. But I'm just like, guys,
like them as a couple. I want them to be together.
Sure.
I think them breaking up in the first part of the season was a stupid option, just so you can have the whole scene where she's like, "Oh, I was back in the past, and there was some surprises."
Chris,
like it was so.
You've got a ship full of people, right? Of Starfleet people, and you take the guy who isn't yes, and yeah.
Well, okay. The reason they take Book is because he's the one that has like
reason,
a close personal relationship.
Why would you bring somebody else to make it a little more interesting?
Yeah. Well, and let's get into the episode. Let's run through our visuals here, guys. More flashing images.
Short answer. Probably because they're trying to save money on these two episodes by not having to pay for a lot of cast, not having to pay for crazy
it seems like
the next episodes are probably going to be outlandish and wild.
But they've eliminated like Detmer from this. They sent her.
We're sending her to fly the ISS Enterprise back to the base or whatever.
She wasn't even in this episode, and she's gone now. They sent her away.
She's busy. Okay, well, so yeah, the episode starts off with Book's log, kind of a civilian's personal log. So we get all that kind of breakdown. He's talking about Maul and that she's the closest thing is to family. Get a couple shots of Grudge here, big cat.
Norman makes a good point. Why can't Maul just be a career acquaintance Book knows rather than his mentor's daughter? Because
it needs to be connected.
it's an age-old trope that every character in the story has to be some sort of relation that's close, even though it's just like, magical. I agree. They should just be some sort of acquaintance that he knew.
Why does
They
Michael
don't need
Burnham have to
write-
be Spock's sister? It's the same kind of thing, right? Right.
Exactly.
So because it's got to be more connected than that, I guess. So anyway, Book heads to the bridge. He knows he's going on this mission. We get Captain Burnham on the bridge asking for Tilly and Stamets. It's not like they even have one science officer on Discovery. They kind of have three, right? With Stamets, Adira, and Tilly. They kind of give this presentation about they're trying to track down Locke and Maul. The sensor pattern just ended, but we just had to recalibrate the sensors to look at it this way. And then we find this wormhole that's kind of, I don't know, opening and closing kind of like a sphincter or something,
They call it an aperture in the episode.
An aperture, of course.
Yeah. Like a camera lens.
Yeah. Okay. More like a camera lens. That's probably a more apt description.
But space butthole is aperture as well.
The space butthole. You'll never unsee it. So they're going to go in. They can't use any communications. They're going to need to take a shuttle in. Discovery's too large. So it's Burnham and Book are going to go. And she gives the con over to Rayner. And Rayner wants to talk to her. Now, I felt like he was going to give her like the Riker speech to Picard. Like, the captain's place is on the bridge. I should be leading this mission, whatever. And I think that would actually be correct. That the first officer should be the one leading this mission. But she's always like, no, I have a personal connection here. I'm closer to things. I have to do things myself.
I agree. This was a little bit of a ding in my books. I would have liked to seen Rayner go on this mission with Book as opposed to Burnham, and she could have stayed behind and done what he did.
Well, yeah, but that would take away.
Other than I guess the culminating point is that she's connecting with him by researching his species.
Yeah, well, it's confirmed in this episode he's a Kelleran, who was a race we met in one episode of Deep Space Nine, which I had forgotten about. They were in a war with the Talin. They had these things called the Harvesters, and that was the one where everyone thought O'Brien was dead. But because Keiko thought he wouldn't drink coffee in the afternoon, she knew he was alive. But then we find out that he does drink coffee in the afternoon. So Keiko just didn't really know what O'Brien does. Anyway, but he's a Kelleran. So, she's learning things about Kelleran society, and that ends up mattering in this episode. So Book and Burnham leave. They don't go in Book's old ship. Was that ship destroyed, or I don't even remember now?
I don't remember, and I was pondering that the whole
cool
time.
ship that he had, like that.
Yeah, is that
his
gone?
cool little Morphe ship.
Yeah, that ship was gone like last season.
Yeah,
did it get annihilated in something?
I think it went down with Tarka, right? Like at the end of that season, I think Tarka and the ship went down together. Or
he pulled an Independence Day with it, didn't he?
I think so. Yeah, if I recall correctly. And so so they take this other shuttle, which is much smaller than that ship, but it's kind of cool looking. Anyway, so
smaller, but the interior of that thing is massive, dude. That's the biggest shuttle that has ever been in Star Trek, if you think about it.
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty big looking. Like, it looks just as big as his old ship almost. But it's meant to be much smaller, I think. Anyway, so they are heading into they're having conversations. They're getting more comfortable with each other again. The iciness that was the conflict of last season is starting to fade. So it seems like they're getting back together. If everybody was on pins and needles about it, it might happen. So anyway, they head in. It's a bit of a rough ride to get into the thing, and then they see a bunch of debris. I think communications were cut off.
So it's basically a wormhole into an interdimensional pocket between universes.
Correct. Yeah, it's like a little pocket universe, but probably the easiest way to describe it. And then we see it. Hey, there's a ship, ISS, Mirror Universe. They know right away it's the Enterprise, and so this was kind of interesting. I was like, okay, why is this coming in? My thought about this was, well, the USS Defiant ended up in the mirror universe and ended up mattering quite a bit over there. Maybe the ISS Enterprise coming into the Prime universe might have some kind of effect here with the rest of the season. I guess we'll have to see what the long-term effects. Anyway, so the episode written by Johanna Lee and Carlos Cisco, and directed by Jen McGowan, who has directed some episodes before. So we get into, they're looking at the Enterprise, trying to figure out what to do. They see Locke and Maul's ship has been destroyed. And, I think they kind of figure out that maybe they're on the Enterprise as well. Then we go over to Culber here, who's in sickbay, and we see Tilly has to come into sickbay to do something, to access a panel because she's trying to figure out the thing. And she kind of notices that Culber is, a little standoffish, I guess would be the way to say it.
I would say, well, she's there to reroute the power, but he's not so much standoffish. He's just sort of distracted. That's the perfect term, Adam. Distracted. His mind's been other places, literally.
His mind's been other places. Well, hey, you're always there for everyone else, she says. So if you need to talk, I'm here.
I feel like she's there for everybody. She's
yeah, she's a good shoulder to lean upon. She's a good friend and stuff. He was definitely going to take her up on the talk too, but then she gets interrupted,
which he does, but that comes near the end. So we'll circle back to this part of it. Then we head over to Stamets and Adira, who are trying to solve the wormhole thing, whatever. And Adira is
this is a hole.
Yeah. But Adira's beating themselves up because they're the one that let the time bug onto the ship, and they feel bad about that. Which Stamets like, you shouldn't feel bad about this. But just then Rayner shows up to be a jerk like he always does, and he just wants answers. Hey,
more words, Dave. More words.
Hey, how about we stop talking about our feelings and we actually do the mission?
I like this. This scene was good. I whenever he comes down there and talks in engineering, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, he's always like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's not a science officer whatsoever, right? So he's always like, what does that mean? How do we do this? How do we get through these problems?
Well, yeah, Adira's like, well, we're thinking about, using a deflector beam that would make it bigger, but it could also collapse it, and there's like a 47% chance of that. So we're gonna make it not that.
Great screenshot there.
Yeah, this is just Raiders. Every time he has to talk to the science team, he's like, okay, what do I have to say for you to give me the thing I need in order to fix the mission? Is really what I want to get to.
He's also like, he gives up and he's like, just get communications back on as fast as you can.
Yeah, whatever you got to do. Okay, nicey. See you later. So they go back to try to solve that. Then we see Book and Burnham on the Enterprise, the ISS Enterprise, as they're kind of going through. We see the bridge. Of course, this is the Strange New World set, just redressed, but looks cool. We get to see them actually zoom out, and we see the the ship there in the space. Burnham tries to use her counterpart's access codes or whatever, but she's like, my counterpart must be dead by the time this ship ended up here because they don't work anymore. She also remarks about how Book is standing over at the science station, which was Spock's science station and her brother's thing. They kind of
apparently the ship's been there for like 900 years, and she has a little emotional flashback.
Well, I guess what we find out by the end of this episode is that there was Janal, who was that Trill guy we met, that that Culber had been sort of the vessel for in the previous one, and so him, that Romulan guy that we met on the first episode, some Terran person or scientist who defected or like
Dr. Cho, apparently.
Dr. Cho. So there was like this group of scientists, which included all these individuals that planted all these clues and seeds at different places. And this is just another one of those, like the Enterprise, the ISS Enterprise being stashed here in this pocket universe. So, because they wanted, and each time they tell us by the end of the episode, there's a different test, like about your morality and whether you're sort of advanced enough to have this progenitor tech. We also see here in the Enterprise, it looks like this is the transporter room, that they've turned it into kind of a refugee sleeping area. We see like they find like different stuffed animals and dolls, and we even get to see this plaque here that gives like the story, because we know that that Spock in the Mirror universe went on to become like the new leader, and he kind of introduced all these reforms to the Terran Empire to make them more benevolent and peaceful and whatever. At least that's what the Mirror Kira tells us by the time of Deep Space Nine. This plaque, was interesting. It's hard to read, but it says like the new High Chancellor presented hope and justice if they wanted it to our world. His word, the light, hope. I don't know. It's hard to read it even with the thing, but it talks about
the
a
basic
Kelpian.
gist of the gist is that the Kelpian, the alternate world Kelpian Saru, raised basically a coup against the ISS, or whatever, the Alter Earth Federation. I forget what they're called. The Terrans.
The Terrans, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he little revolution against all that, and they took the Enterprise for a joyride, and then they got it stuck in the Pocket universe and abandoned ship.
Yeah, and what we're told it also about what happened in the Mirror universe was after Spock made it like more peaceful and benevolent, and whenever the Klingons and the Cardassians in particular teamed up and like conquered Earth, and it subjugated the Terrans for the next century. So anyway, so then we see that Burnham in this moment finds this locket, which I guess was Mirror Spock's locket. Because it's got a picture. I think this is meant to be Spock.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay.
Is that what we're looking at there? Spock and Burnham together?
That's probably exactly what that is.
It might be, but I don't like. Now that I'm looking closer at the photo in the locket, I don't think so.
It's hard to tell. It looks like a couple kids. Okay, so here was my thought process watching this. I'm like, oh, she found some sort of clue that's gonna lead to the grander scheme of things, but it was just like nothing more than a red herring. Like they don't even really. This whole scene, I'm like, okay, we're getting into the medical bay. We're gonna start exploring like why they're here, why the clue's here. We don't. We just get into a standoff with Maul and Locke because and it happens so yada yada, so it's just so yada yada, and it kind of loses a point for me here. Also, these phasers right here annoy the shit out of me.
Why?
I don't like these phasers.
The
because
design?
they're always
I think it
unstable. Just I'm walking around not firing or doing anything, and it's just like it's got a little fan in it at all given times. Like it's just powering up consistently, even though you're sitting there not doing anything with it other than pointing it. Like that is dumb. I don't know why it does that. It should be silent. You can have the little power up sound, then fire the. You want to do that? That's cool. I love that. Let's do that, but don't like the whole scene. It's distracting. It drives me nuts.
I didn't notice that at all.
So Dave, neither did I actually. But Dave,
You will
just
now.
blew up that picture in the locket, and it looks like a young Vulcan, probably Spock, and maybe Amanda.
Like maybe like I don't know who it's meant to be.
Okay, so
maybe it's supposed to be Amanda. Maybe it's because it looks like pointed ears almost, but it could be Amanda and Michael Burnham.
No, but look at her. Look at the nose. I don't think that it's anyway. Who knows?
For my first thought was it was Noonien Singh.
Could be. Because he kind of looks like the kid we saw in Strange New Worlds.
Right?
That was the young Khan, but I don't know. I think this will come back into play. Anyway,
Hopefully.
but let's go to the scene here, which comes up in the sickbay next, where Locke and Maul are already in there, and they have all their phasers pointed out, which they're using the holo projector to create decoys, and they're kind of covered from all angles. So they see the holo projector. And they're like, we're going to take that out, which they do. So we get some action here as they kind of leap into the sick bay, shooting the fake holographic Locke and Mauls as they're going.
I got a quick question for you guys. Is this the first time they've pointed out the holo emitter in a room?
They did it in Voyager because like the doctor had them in sickbay for his
But
like things.
yes, it is, especially with the Enterprise.
Yes. So yeah, but in this era, it's odd. It's odd that they would have one from like this
Yes, it is.
23rd century and
Yeah.
and to call it out like that, yeah, was unusual. But I didn't hate it because
Maybe
like we
it's a mobile holo emitter that they threw on the wall. That's why it was so obvious and they could see it.
well, we saw also that like in Discovery in this very show, they showed us that the holographic technology in the 23rd century was not as sophisticated. It was kind of like more hollow, if you will, than what we see here. So it's almost like that hollow emitter was upgraded or something.
Yeah, which makes me believe that it was one of their gadgets that just like let's throw a holo emitter up there to trap them. Because like, how else are they gonna be so quick to like? Okay, one, they're on the Enterprise. They probably I
don't
would
have access to the systems. Yeah.
don't have access to the systems, nor should they. So, two, how would they like get their images in the holo system and trigger it so that it's like obeying their commands and do all that stuff? It would make more sense if that was like a pocket holo emitter that they threw up high on the wall and it presented their image that they pre-programmed. That makes more sense than
I agree. It makes more sense and might be what they intended, but they don't really explain it that way. So
yeah,
anyway.
and I feel like that there could have been one scene instead of all the flashbacky scenes that we got with Maul and Locke being Romeo and Juliet. Um, we could have had like one scene of just these two discovering Enterprise and like getting in it and being like, all right, let's set up something. It's over here. Give me that one scene of them discovering the MacGuffin key before discovery. I don't know.
Maybe, okay, let's start. There's this whole standoff that comes up after the fight where Locke and Maul versus Burnham and Book, but basically this is where Book starts saying like, hey, your father was my mentor and whatever, but she's not so convinced by this. They should, we see here that Locke already has the thing that they're after on this particular thing, this next piece of the puzzle for the progenitors tech. But I think, and they say we need this to get rid of whatever this Breen word was, the bounty on his head. Where
we'll just call it the Royal Breen Bounty, a Breen
Royal Breen Bounty. But yeah. Burnham says, no, you guys don't have the clue. I already found it in this locket thing, which I think is a bluff, right? Like this was something completely different she's telling us here.
That's what I'm saying. The whole thing was like a red herring. Like at first it seemed like the locket was going to be a big play. She even like adds like a little, I assumed some sort of tracker or something into the lock, like a little piece of tech into it. So I'm assuming it's like, oh, she either found a clue or she's going to try and trade. And it's just, nope, she just keeps it.
She just keeps it. Yeah, none of that comes up. They don't try to steal it from her really or anything like that. Yeah, anyway, so we find out about that Locke's a Breen, and then we get this this flashback. We get a series of flashbacks. This is the first one. We see this Breen base.
It reminded me of No Man's Sky. There's a game where you fly up to a space base like this, and it's like very open, and everything's like if anyone's ever played No Man's Sky, that probably triggered my memories because it did to me.
I have not. So,
it's a good game.
But let's talk about the uniforms. These Breen uniforms, which I liked. I liked how they were like, it was the same kind of design we're seeing in the Deep Space Nine episodes we're covering right now, Adam, but they're all black. And they don't have like the big snouts, like we always kind of thought maybe the Breen had a different shaped head, but no, these 32nd century Breen anyway, they don't have that. They have more of just a rounded helmet. And we see how Locke came to meet Maul. She was trying to sell them impure dilithium or something. They didn't like it too much, and then Locke had to deal with her. But then Maul kind of turned on the flirt, and then but she got the upper hand on him. I don't know. We see this Breen.
She saw that he was a rich kid, and she thought, hey, let me get that rich Breen peen.
That's what she wanted. Yeah, so I don't know. This is kind of like how they fell in love, I guess. Started off kind of an adversarial way, but then came to understand each other. He tried to arrest her, but she can't be arrested. She gets right out of her restraints right
Yeah, she
away.
didn't tell him his safe word. She didn't tell him her safe word yet.
No,
Can't be
Yeah.
putting the cuffs on so early. It's too
This-
early for that.
This is some of the most Breen stuff we ever have gotten, because even when they appear on Deep Space Nine, we never get to like really see much.
Well, that was, they started off with like the no universal translator. The language was like we are on Deep Space Nine, and then it switched over.
Well, we also find out that they can speak our language. So every time that they're not speaking a language in Deep Space Nine, they're choosing not to. It seems like,
Yeah.
or maybe the 24th century Breen were different, but
I will
anyway.
admit I was super into this sort of revealing of Breen lore of how like they choose to speak the language they do. They can speak, the common tongue, we'll call it, for lack of term, and just their whole a little more peek into their society in ways. I was digging it.
Yeah, just for context, this is what Breen sound like. That's their language. That means we brought you gifts.
Back in the 90s, I too had a dial-up modem.
This kind of sounds like a dial-up modem. And so it seems like Breen don't need to wear those suits at all. Their skin changes to this more like I don't know, like not this translucent color that they have when they're in the refrigeration mode. So I guess we're gonna find out more about that. But
Yeah, so yeah, they have two faces. One's gelatinous and the other is not so much. It's like octopus basically.
Mhm.
I would attribute these guys closer to like some form of jellyfish or octopus in
or
a
crab,
sense.
even like
Um,
the soft shell crabs. Then their shells get hardened or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah, potentially.
interesting thing here from Norman. He says like it's maybe the fluidity of the Breen is why they were in league with the changelings in Deep Space Nine. Maybe they're not solids in the same way we think of like the humanoids are solids.
Which is probably why the uncle was so about like don't wear that face, we are higher beings because we can, we're one step closer to being like the founders.
Yeah, maybe like there's something I'm curious to learn more about that if they're going to tell us more about that. Anyway, but there's more by the course of this fight in sickbay. It ends up here that Locke and Michael end up sort of like cut off from Book and Maul here in these force fields. They're kind of caught in the sickbay together because the thing's been shot, so they need to go to the bridge. So effectively, Maul and Book decide to like hold a truce here while they work together to get them out of this force field. And that's kind of the thing here that we're seeing. And they trust nobody, Locke and Maul. Nobody, no matter how good you say you are, or how whatever. So, and then Burnham.
We have a common interest, enemy of mine. Let us work together, for it will reveal goodness. And the other two are just having an interrogation.
Yeah, this is the next Breen flashback scene here, where I don't know. Trying to remember
more flirty.
More flirty. Oh, this is where he first takes off his helmet, right? So we
Yeah.
we saw him do this in the first episode when we first met him. We didn't know he was a Breen at that point. But yeah, like kind of seeing how they look here with the refrigeration on, and when he comes out of it, he's like, "Whoa, that's weird."
Is it refrigeration? Do they have to be at a certain temperature or something?
Well, that's what we were always told in Deep Space Nine about the Breen, that they wore refrigeration suits. So
yeah, but then the question was, well, why they have such a beautiful world and they don't remember somebody had been there.
Well, Weyoun says that the Breen that their planet isn't frozen. So because that was what it was assumed, that they came from a cold environment, therefore they wore refrigeration suits when they were out, dealing with other species. But that it's not a necessity of their planet, that that the Breen kind of chose to evolve this way. Maybe.
Okay. So then I would sort of mentally relate their suits to sort of a refrigeration deep pressure suit to mimic like, deep water atmosphere, and how sea creatures down there tend to have translucent gelatin like skin because of the lack of sunlight, because of the cold water, and this to save like energy and stuff like that for the most part. So it could
Could
be,
be.
it
Yeah.
could be because of that.
Yeah, like if this is not the what I had imagined a Breen would look like under the helmet, but I don't hate it. I just, um it's not the most egregious thing. Anyway, so then yeah, we have this conversation here between Book and Maul talking about her dad. And she doesn't like her dad or her life or any of it, and she's not too receptive to anything Book's selling her. um
Thirty
So she
thousand
certainly went
years in
into
the
that whole
future.
story, though.
yeah.
Yeah, 30,000 years in the future, and daddy issues are still a prevailing thing.
And never all the best cowboys have daddy issues was an episode of Lost. It's kind of a true statement.
Mhm.
Then we have a Burnham and Locke conversation where she talks about the Federation always being about second chances, that her and Book are proof of that. I think this is where Locke's like, well, if we go to jail, can we do our time together? And she's like, oh, I can talk to them about that. That's negotiable. So
So I just want a bed to sleep in.
he'd rather be dead than not be with her. That's how strong
Yeah.
their love is, guys. Then on the bridge, we have Locke and Maul. Sorry, just Maul and Book, who are trying to get into the systems. Maul ends up trying to. Oh no, there's a flashback first. Back here in the Breen thing, where they were hiding in like this holographic room,
A hollow tent.
a hollow
A hollow
tent.
Mako tent. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where she's like, I have to go. I have to leave. I can't stay here. And I'm gonna have to.
I got a new job.
I got a new job. I'll see you later. We might have to break up. But then his uncle shows up, who we're told is like a pretty high up there kind of royal Breen guy. And he's able to just bypass this hollow thing, and he confronts them directly.
Brother of the King of Breen.
Yeah, he's like the crown prince or something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't get a resolution to that yet. We're back here on the Enterprise bridge as she's trying to hack into the systems. He's like, I don't know if you should do that to a ship this old. And she ends up making the whole thing blow up.
She blows it up with her finger. She's jabbing at the console with her finger, not a tool, not like a blaster. Her finger. She just hits the G spot on the console, and boom, the Enterprise is given the big O, man.
Yeah, well, she knows just the spot here, so it's all blow it up all around them quite spectacularly.
Do you think that was a tribute to like old Enterprise episodes?
Yeah, I was thinking like I could just hear Scotty in my head talking at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't do that. Then the force fields do come down though. Like, so I guess Maul did work, but then Locke's like, he's ready to fight almost right away.
Okay, his gun or his blaster or whatever.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the splitter from Dead Space, which is, I don't know if you probably have never played this game. I don't know.
No.
But it's an amazing horror game, and this pretty much looks like the same thing, the way he holds it and the vertical, and I like the design.
It's
kind of reminds
really big.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the Jot Vosh disruptor we saw in Picard a little bit. But anyway, so is this where they get? Yeah, they get into a fight here, Locke and Burnham. They go through a window here in the sick bay. Then Book and what's going on here with Book and Maul? I'm trying to remember. Is this? Oh yeah, they figure out that the ship's going to crash into the
Okay, this is where it kind of gets a little confusing, because when they show up, it seems like the ship is almost stuck or like frozen in space mist.
Yeah,
and it just seems like, and it presents itself as stuck, but then she goes bink bink bink, blows up the bridge, and now the entire Enterprise is now drifting towards the winking sphincter of space.
Correct. Yeah, that is what played out here, but yeah, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense, based on what we understood was the situation of the ship coming into it. But anyway, like I guess we're not meant to think too hard about that part.
Whatever reason to get an Enterprise into the future, I guess.
Right. I guess this is how they're going to do it. So then, yeah, Maul pulls the gun on Book here, and he's like, I'm just going to kill you with kindness. You won't shoot me. I'm a good guy. I'm going to put my gun down. See, or he gives it to her. He gives her the gun, and then she has two guns.
It's a
but he
choice
said-
you can make. I hope.
We have choices. We always have choices. And he says, I'm with Qui-Gon, but my whole my planet, all my people were killed. So now you're the closest thing I have to family. I don't know. I still think it's a stretch. I don't know if I'd want this person to be my family. If I were him.
You don't
but-
trust Maul?
No,
You
I do
don't
not
think
trust
she's
Maul.
worthy?
I think Locke's more trustworthy, but neither of them are really good people. Anyway, so Burnham's kicking some ass down here on Locke. He even grabs like a scalpel, basically. That's not it there, but he grabs basically this surgical thing. He comes at Burnham pretty hard, and she totally does like a fireman's carry wrestling style here as she throws him over the shoulders, and he manages to stab himself in the process.
Of course he did.
And Burnham gets the piece from him too, and
Yeah.
all in one move.
But look at the size of that gun. Okay, wait. It's like a briefcase.
It's like the size of her head, basically.
It's like an
Holy
iPad.
cow! It's like, how can she even lift that thing? Oh, I could just.
She's not all the way, to be fair. It's not her normal gun, but we see here that now we're told that we were told in Deep Space Nine the Breen don't have blood, but that seems to be blood.
Yeah, that looks like some sort of, maybe it's not blood, but maybe again the jelly man theory sort of comes through, and one layer of his jelly pocket got pierced, and that's just his jello oozing out. Maybe it's strawberry, maybe it's green apple,
Maybe.
who knows.
Maybe it's Tutti Frutti. Who's to say? But of course, then this is when Maul shows up, and she's like, "Why did you stab my boyfriend? You monsters!"
Really broke that trust she just built with Book about 5 minutes ago.
But again, it wasn't Michael's fault either. I don't know. They just hate everybody, these two. Okay, then we get back to the flashback of when Locke's uncle was being a jerk, and
Where they did the thing, the sinful thing.
the sinful thing, doing it all here. So I don't know. This is where he's like, "Speak their language. Let them hear you." And nothing he said was too nice, as well. And he takes off his helmet, and he's like, "Yeah, we can take off our helmets, but we never would. We're better than that, or that's not our way, or something."
We're of a better evolutionary standpoint. Don't lessen yourself with these lesser beings. Don't,
Right.
fornicate with this fleshing. We are jelly people.
We are the jellies. We are the better people. And he puts it back on. But and then Locke's like, "But we can be like this. We don't have to wear these helmets all the time. We can totally not have helmets. Doesn't matter. That's not our Breen way." So
But I can feel the air on my face.
shut up and kill her. Kill this lady. Give them the gun to get the execution. Never would have saw this coming, where you give the gun to this guy, and these two Breen are just hold her, and he hesitates here, but then of course he shoots both of these.
He thinks
guys.
with his Breen peen, and he shoots the guys to save the girl.
Yeah, and he even pulls it here on his uncle, but he doesn't shoot his uncle in the heart like he did the other two. He shoots him in the shoulder to show his mercy.
I'm just glad it was a weapon that didn't disintegrate the opponent on first contact, like so many weapons in all of Star Trek seem to do.
True, that's true.
It's like, oh, cool. That makes sense. That's gonna leave something behind.
Then we come out of that flashback when they, how they started their life on the run together, I guess. And, here they are, in the ISS Enterprise's sick bay, just glad he's going to live. I think this is when they make their departure out of this, because Burnham and Book head to the bridge. I like how Burnham just sits in the chair and lets Book do all the flying. We're here at the controls. As we got Rayner and Discovery here trying to figure out how to help them. Oh yeah, so Burnham and Book are able to shoot like a tractor beam through the wormhole, and she basically sends like a Morse code of sorts with like a Kelleran type thing to
so it's a Kelleran beat of 3414. And they're like the tractor's blinking 3414, and he's like, okay, that's Burnham, let's go wrangle him in, toss him another rope, so to speak. I was enjoying this part of the story, honestly. It was a lot of fun. I was like, oh, they're gonna do the thing, this is gonna be awesome, and they do it.
And then Rayner called again all three science officers, Tilly, Stamets, and Adira. And how do we do this? Can we fix this or get them out? And they're like, no, everything we could possibly do won't work. We've thought of it all. And he's like, well, that can't be. We have to think of an answer here. Let's talk around the bridge. Let's all collaborate and come up with a
barrel
plan.
of citrus mash for the first one that comes up with a solution.
Yeah,
I don't know
I'm guessing
why
that's
Rayner
like
speaks like
Kelleran
this,
beer or something like that.
Yeah, I would probably some sort of like cider or like mead.
Yeah. It's ultimately what's his name, Lieutenant Commander Reese. He's like, what if we use a bunch of photon torpedoes, but we changed their thing to antimatter or something? They're like, yeah, that's it, we didn't think of that at all. So
yeah, we were too busy trying to suck power from the lights and the air and everything else. We never thought about using the explosive power of torpedoes to do
You
the
should
job
work
for
in
us.
the science department.
yeah, you maybe Reese, you want to come wear a blue shirt with us? Help us figure this out. He's like, you got
Put
it.
him in a green tunic.
So they kind of, I think everyone gets Keller and Mash by the end here. There's just this moment here where Rayner touches the chair, but he never sits in it, right? Much like Archer, Adam. He just
like Archer, like who never sat in his chair ever. And one time
Yeah.
he did, he stood up so quickly, right?
Yeah, where's that when I need it? There it is.
The captain's chair. You may have noticed that I don't sit in it very much.
I noticed that the first season.
Yeah, exactly. He just walks around, paces around
the bridge.
So anyway, so Rayner's working on things with Discovery in the end. Book and Burnham are taking the Enterprise here through. And this is where she's like, hey, when I was in the time bug thing, I saw you. You were the surprise, and it was really nice. We used to be really happy, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So
useless waste.
Just get
of
back together,
energy.
guys. Just
like that's what I'm saying. Yes, get them back together. They're a great couple. Breaking them up made no sense.
I get that he did some bad things, and she has a right to be mad at him about it. But
I get that too. But they didn't. They could have just been like, "Hey, you're dumb. That's a tiff. No need to break
exactly.
up."
She seems like she wants to be back.
They both just get back together, guys. Just like it's okay. You have our permission.
Couple. They're a
you have
great couple.
If you're seeking it. Anyway,
was the ship. As soon as I saw it, I was for the ship. I love Book and Burnham together. Just put them back together.
Well, hopefully they will. And then we can stop having these scenes. Anyway, so then they fire the torpedoes at the wormhole, and it works. Where
in a hexagonal pattern. Why hexagon? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, Rayner. You don't need to know why it's a hexagonal pattern. I don't know if that's gonna come back to matter or not. So a little bit of a rough ride here, of course, but eventually it works, and they're able to pull them out here.
To a beautiful degree. This shot after the thing collapses, and then you just get this like the shot of the Enterprise glowing with like I don't know where the light source is coming from, but oh man, I want a poster of this. So this shot right here, I want a poster of this. This is so beautiful. The composition in this shot is gorgeous. It curves on them constellation classes, I tell you.
Yeah, you're like Reese. You love a Connie. When she's done it. Like Reese, he was like, "Hey, look at that ship. It might be Mirror Universe."
Great lines.
Yeah. Then they come out here. Oh, they go, "Hey, there's a shuttle being launched from the Enterprise or escape pod," and it's Lock and Maul, of course. Boom. See ya. Oh, too late. Sorry, Captain.
Everybody's too out of fuel to chase them down. At least we got their trail.
Yeah, we got their trail. We'll have to deal with that next episode, everybody. Of course.
Of course.
Then there's a
Beautiful
little bit of
shot.
I love these two ships. It kind of comes back to the second season here, where we saw these two ships meet up at the beginning of season 2 or the end of season 1 as well. And then we get Rayner and Burnham talking here and a walk and talk in the hallway. Trying to remember the substance of this was. They talk about a Wushikin and Detmer.
Oh yeah, he was talking about how, the 3414 was basically a song from a Kelleran war tribe story that involved one, I think it was a general of some form, using music to communicate with his troops, and 3414
It felt like they were talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh here. Like, you find this a little bit too abstract.
Yeah, especially because we've never known anything about these Kellerans before this episode, really.
I
So-
was into it. It was a nice. It
No.
was like a nice
Yeah,
explanation.
but what you're trying to say here, is that Burnham is really trying with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah, she's really
That's what it
trying.
means. You
She's
learned
read
Earth
his
expressions.
Wikipedia page.
Yeah, you got some Earth expressions. I'm going to try to learn about the Kellerans. So that's kind of what she's doing here, and how I think they're a good team. I think it's fine.
I like those two a lot. I so far.
Yeah. I'm with it. I'm fine with it. Okay, and then we get a scene here in the lounge. I still don't remember if this has a name, this lounge or this bar, but this is where the Discovery crew meet up, and this is where we have Culber and Tilly talking. I kind of agree with Norman that this scene was very forgettable for me.
Yeah.
And I was not invested in this conversation very much. I get Culber's I've been through some things in life and it's changing my perspective or something.
It's hard.
I
he's-
died.
Okay.
I
hang on.
died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did Shax. He got
he
over it.
died. He lived an outer body experience while being, aware of his body. So that was pretty odd. He's gone through living in one time period and then jumping 1,000 or some odd years into the future. Now living in that time period.
But
And
so
now
are the
they're
rest of them.
Yeah, he's in
Yeah, and-
Starfleet. This goes with the territory.
And now they're about to discover the potential origins of life and stuff, and he's just sort of flabbergasted, lost, and confused about all the things that have happened to him. And it's hard to base a meaningful conversation on a guy that's basically just trying to grasp his own PTSD, even though he's the ship's doctor and apparently psychiatrist at the same time. And I'm a big fan of Culber's storyline and his character arc from beginning to.
But don't you
the
think
final
though that they
season.
should give this the time it needs then?
Yes, they should. There should be more time for Culber and his stuff. And I think what this scene is they tend to do this in Discovery, where the first 3/4 of the episode is the main chunk of whatever's going on, and then the last 5 minutes are these little tag bits that they end up exploring in the next episode in the main chunks. So in the next episode, we're gonna figure out what's in the juice bottle and what's probably going on more so with Culber and his state of mind and how it might affect everybody else in the mission. Because
I imagine it's a
whatever.
setup for the next episode, because if it's not,
Yeah.
I'm just why?
I would hope so, because to just sort of dismiss it so vapidly in this conversation, in this bar conversation, would be pretty disheartening. I
This
feel
shot
like
we
it's gonna
have a
be more-
Ferengi bartender, and we have Morn species. I'm trying.
Oh man, I didn't even notice
Oh,
that.
I didn't
yeah.
see that either. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
we got a Lurian there too. So Ferengi and Lurians, even in the 32nd century. Anyway, so then we get the next piece here as we see Burnham is kind of researching the progenitors. Book comes to see her. They talk about the MacGuffins of it all. What
Mysterious clear liquid.
this mysterious
Which is-
clear liquid?
Clear liquid. You expect some liquid of color. I was expecting blue, but it was clear. I was like, oh, huh. How
Yeah.
very.
That will play into the
Untypical.
next episode. Previously on Star Trek Discovery, remember when Michael Burnham had this blue water thing? Kinda. Yeah, well, that's what this episode's about. So anyway, she puts the next piece here in the thing, and they're making a little, I don't know, tower thing,
It's a
whatever
key.
it is. It's
That's a key. That's
They're making a key.
100% going to be a key.
It kind of looks like the
Yeah.
key from Masters of the Universe, but smaller. You know, the one that Gwildor had with He-Man, and trying to go to Eternia. If you've not seen that movie, you really should. It has Robert Duncan McNeil and Courtney Cox from the 80s.
I briefly remember it. Maybe we'll have to pull it up on Hold Up.
Yeah, you so need to pull that into Hold Up. Anyway, we see the ISS Enterprise going away. I guess for an 800-year-old ship from another universe, it can still get home on its own.
They can use another ship, I guess.
That's what
right?
I'm saying. Like, refurbish that thing, add some new tech to it, bring it in, make it like
Cut off the nacelles.
Cut off. Oh yeah,
Don't-
you got to cut them off. They got to be floating now. So
No, don't do that. Just give it some like cool like morphing skin tech and like give it some sweet like power upgrades with lasers and a nice, interior. Make it like a Pimp My Ride of Enterprise ships,
Well, maybe we'll see how it goes. Anyway, they watch that go away. They got the blue liquid thing. And
Just gotta call an exhibit.
and that was kind of the end. We leave here looking at the key of it all. We can see there's basically one or maybe two pieces left to go into this, I think. Anyway, and this episode was dedicated to Alan Red Marcetta, who I don't know who that is, but I suppose they were somebody who passed away. And that was the end of the episode. So guys, we've talked about it all. If there's any context about who that was, love to know. Is there any fun facts to speak of here, Adam?
Well, I'm trying to figure that one out.
Me too. I'm not getting along.
Alan Red Marcetta was a lead set dresser who died in a motorcycle accident in 2022.
Okay.
A set decorator. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm surprised they haven't dedicated something to the guy who passed away recently. He was on the cast. He had played a few different characters going back to Call on season 1. I'm trying to remember his name right now, but he was a Canadian actor who he also played that guy last season who was like in a wheelchair, who was working, or I guess it was season 3, who was working for the Emerald Chain. Do you remember that guy? Near the end, he was like
I kind of remember that guy, and I didn't know he had passed.
Yeah, he
That's
did
wild.
recently. So I thought that there would be something for him. Maybe there still will be to come, but yeah. Anyway, Adam?
Not a lot. Sorry, Dave. There's not much up there that I had a chance to take a look at. So,
Well, we talked about it all, really.
Yeah.
We know the facts. We know the fun facts. And with that, guys, let's get into our rating. So, of course, Michael and Ashley not able to be with us here tonight. So we'll get their ratings next time. So this was probably my least favorite episode so far. So I'm gonna have to go probably into the 6s for me. 6.5 is about as good as I can get tonight. So over to you, Murphy.
Did I really give Face the Strange 9? Huh.
You liked it. We all liked it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Because I was really liking this episode. I was thinking it was like a 10, and then we were talking about it.
I don't want to skew your rating. If you like it,
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, there were like points that we talked about that I did kind of like afflict me when I was watching it. So I'm not going to give it a perfect 10, but it was better than. I feel like it was better than last week's episode. I'm giving this one a 9.5. Honestly.
wow.
Right.
This is the point in Discovery shows or seasons where the show starts to get super good and I get really invested into like the storyline of what's happening that they take forever to set up. I find it's the first few episodes that drags everybody down, and they want to poop on the series because of that, and they don't give it the rest of the time of day to actually finish it and see the grander tapestry of what's being like presented to us. And I find usually the midpoint of these seasons, that's where the show picks up and gets a lot better. And I'm looking forward to the end, and I'm hoping for big things out of it, because it seems like they're setting up a tight 5, hopefully, in the remaining episodes. Is it 5, 10 episodes? Yeah.
We have 5 more after this.
5 more,
So,
and,
yeah.
and series finale. Like, we're done.
Including the finale.
Yeah.
So yeah. Like that there was I was like, do we have time for what's going on with Colbert? Maybe there's something big coming with Colbert, but we'll see. So Adam, you're up.
So I've gone through a bit of an emotional roller coaster on this one. I came in, I thought, a little higher than I'm leaving, but I still liked it. I liked the whole mall lock thing on the Breen ship. That was good for me. And but I don't like the book Burnham thing, and that's where I'm. So I didn't quite like it as much as last week. I'm going to give this 8.5.
Okay.
All right. Mystic Wolf said it well in the comments. The show was about mirrors. They had 2 love stories competing for dominance.
Right.
And neither of them won.
They just need to move on, right? Says Renee. What do they say? Shed or get off the pot, Michael and Book. Yeah, just okay. And the next episode, I believe, is going to be called Whistle Speak.
Maybe Chakotay will show up.
Oh,
Kuchimoya.
maybe he will. So, with that all said, guys, I think we can wrap it up here on Mirrors, which wasn't really about the mirror universe too much, but at least it had a little bit. So I guess it's
I think out of all the mirror episodes, Davin would probably like this one the most because there wasn't actually a lot of mirror characters in it. It was just like a
Oh,
spice.
but wait, Dave, the ship is the character.
The ship is a character. I will defend that. It's I get it's an inanimate object, but this is why they have names. This is why we refer to ships as she.
I get you. I'm just joking with you. But tonight's it wasn't a character tonight. Come on.
I was really sad when the USS Defiant got destroyed in the Deep Space Nine episode we watched. They're like, well, nobody actually died, Dave. I'm like, the ship died.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to that point yet, sir.
But don't worry, it's not long lived. So so anyway, spoilers for
That happened like 25 years ago, Chris.
I've never watched all of Deep Space Nine.
Me neither.
Going through it.
I've got 3 more.
Okay, with the 2 guys who have watched Deep Space Nine here on a Star Trek podcast.
I just watched Martok get control of a ship, and Worf was like his commander with Dax and stuff. And then
that's a great episode.
It was a pretty good episode. I ain't gonna lie, it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully you'll get caught up there. And anyway, well, check out our Deep Space Nine podcast every Monday night. We are continuing our quest to watch each one. We only have 3 left, and so we got the 3rd last episode coming up this Monday. I'll be talking to Adam and Kevin and maybe Jody and some other people about that before we completely wrap up that podcast series and launch our next one, Star Trek: The Next Generation and the Orville. So look out for those. As well, we have there's just that Debate 9 that happened last Friday with Adam and Mark from the Shuttlepod show and Davin. Look out for that. Yeah, so go back and check that out, guys. We have Star Trek Radio Theater coming up tomorrow night, live 9 p.m. We got Adam's playing Odo and I'm playing Gold Dukat. And we got a lot of the other Live Long and podcasters playing various roles. We got a guy coming in from Australia, Sterling Slowcock Bennett. We got Americans, we got Canadians, we got Australians, we got it all. What else can you ask for? I'm going to leave you guys tonight with a special video that just to help get you excited for us to be doing civil defense, which an episode Murphy has seen, I would imagine, because it's in the 3rd season of Deep Space.
Yes, I have seen civil defense. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, Renee, and good night. Live long and podcast, everybody. First, we're going to play you a little bit of piano music from the Star Trek Discovery lounge, and then we'll play our little intro, our little tribute to civil defense on the way out. Have a good one, everybody. It's jazzy. See you next time, everyone. Live long and podcast.
Bashoran workers, your attention, please.
Season 3 of Deep Space Nine, you know this is the best. Crew trapped in a lockdown, no time to confess. Can they survive the civil defense mess? Trapped with the Cardassians, a test of their might. The clock's ticking fast, gonna fight for their right. Lasers and force fields, they're in for a fight. In the heart of the station, they'll defend through the night. O'Brien takes charge, leading the way, with Cisco and Kira